He's coming to us from a place called Cookies HQ, and he's here to talk to us about how well we know our customers. So please welcome everybody, Denis Sellu.
Thank you. So how's everyone doing? Good? Yeah? This is my first SolidusConf, and it's really good to be here, and then it's really good to put faces to the names I've been seeing on the repos, and you're all very different than your GitHub handles, in a good way. Right, yeah, so my name is Denis. I work over at in Bristol, quietly hidden away, and I work for Cookies HQ. I'm here today to talk to you about analytics in e-commerce. Well, more specifically, the little things we can do to improve our analytics and gain amazing insights into our customers' shopping habits or behaviors. This is going to be a very introductory talk. I myself had problems with analytics ever since I started programming, and it is only very recently that I've come to see the benefits of it, and I can't just wait to share that with anyone I speak to these days. So it's going to be from a very programmer point of view, the principles and the foundations behind analytics. Yeah, there are experts out there that can tell you that better than I can, but from developers, it's from a developer's point of view. So I'm sure, obviously, being at SolidusConf, we all know what e-commerce is. We've all used it for many years. But analytics is one of those things where I speak to people and it's kind of hit and miss. Most people use it, most people don't. Especially from developers, it's not really what we do. But I'm here to argue otherwise. I'm here to hopefully make it clear how analytics is important, especially to us developers. So what is analytics is the first start. This was it was a question that plagued me for years because I never understood what that is properly. I never paid no mind to it. I mean, if you look up the definition for it, it says this is information resulting from systematic analysis of data or statistics. There's a lot of words there, but there are easier ways of putting this. In fact, we can use one word to describe what that is. And for me, once I understood the connection between this word and analytics, everything started to make sense. I began to appreciate it for what it is. I began to see how I can use it from my day to day. And that word, I think, it's learning. Analytics at the core is about learning. My housemate and I tried to figure out what we do. Why are we here? What do we do from 9 to 5 whenever we go to work? And as developers, or as anything really, we solve problems. Every single day we solve a problem. Different types of problems, but problems nonetheless. And a huge part of solving problems is learning. If you don't learn to solve your problems, you're going to get beaten many, many times. So as part of my kind of day-to-day, I try and make sure that I'm always learning better ways to solve problems. And analytics plays a key role in that because as developers, we make tools for users and we want to know what to build. And when I was speaking to Jordan or John, I think yesterday, he wanted to know how we use Solidus. He wanted to know how basically when we upgrade, what are the challenges we face? And because a lot of us don't tell him or don't, when we have issues, our nature is to just try and solve it first before going to help, and it's difficult for you to know. And as developers, we want to know. We want to know how our users are using these tools, and that's where analytics comes into play. I'm just going to go back to customers and e-commerce. So there are many things we can learn about customers and how to use our e-commerce tool, but I've managed to narrow it down to 3. These 3 isn't the end of it. There are many, many other things we can use. I think genuinely, as any store, these are the 3 kind of questions we want to know the answers to, or at least try and address. And the first of that is, where do they come from? We want to know where our customers come from. If we do not know where they come from, we have no idea potentially who they are. And a great benefit of knowing where they come from, you can go there and get some more. If it's some obscure forum online, you can go there and get some more. I spoke to someone at a conference recently who had a store up, and then he had about 60% of his customers coming from a forum, because all these, I think it was a Turkish forum, because all these developers or sellers from Turkey were linking to his store. But he had no idea until he looked at analytics to see, oh, right, maybe I can get nationalization for Turkey, put it in there and just make things a little bit better. And the next thing is, what are their shopping habits? Now, this is very vague. This just means when they come to your site, what are they doing? Until they leave, what are they doing, basically? And that could be many, many things. There is so many startups and everything trying to help you solve that problem. But for example, if they come to your site and one of the analytics we realize, we have a client called CardNest, and they try and sell customized cards to people. So these are locally produced cards by designers, and they'll send you like a monthly collection. And they, looking at their analytics, people would add different cards to their nest, for example, and kind of see what they're going. But I had the chance to look at it, and I think potentially what people could be doing is they could be trying to compare the cards, by adding it to their nest and removing some. So a good way to, if you see that trend, you could build a comparison tool, make it easier for people to be able to do so. And yeah, so you can give them what they want a lot quicker, no hassle, point A to B without any fuss. And the last thing is, where do they drop off and why? It's inevitable. People are going to drop off from your site. It could be speed, performance, whatever the reason is. People will drop off. Once you understand why people are dropping off, you can fix the problem. Fix it so they stay. And if they leave happy with their problem solved, chances are they're likely to come back. So it is really important. This is as far as I'll go in the principle of analytics or the reasons behind it. And we will touch back on the end with most of these points. But throughout this talk, I want to try and address these problems. And in terms of an implementation point of view, I want to try and kind of go over, roughly how to try and answer these questions. So where do we start? This is the thing I had the biggest problem with. Everyone was saying analytics is great. And even once I understood, it was about learning. So if it's about learning, then great. Where do I start? I want to start learning. I want to start using it personally. I want to start improving my development, building better tools. And for a lot of people, that answer is, there are many different things. There are many different ways to start. But in terms of e-commerce, I think a great place to start will be a handy tool I discovered called Segment. Now, just a show of hands here. Who here has heard of Segment? Segment.io. That is a lot. A lot more than I was expecting. That is really good. Segment was a tool my boss, Nick, discovered, and he suggested it to me. I was a bit hesitant to use Segment. It sounded just another integration to some analytics. But it turns out that Segment is not. Segment is just a platform to aggregate all your analytical data. It varies. The kind of integrations they send it to, there are hundreds. But they have a section for analytics. And basically, it works like this. You have your store. It doesn't necessarily need to be a store. Segment works with anything. Websites, apps, basically any kind of code running. And you send all your data over to Segment through whichever setup. We will go through those in a bit. And one at a time, Segment will send it over to all the different integrations from Google Analytics, Mixpanel. If you're doing ads, it will send it over back to Facebook Pixel, and many more, many more. And that kind of looks like this. There are a lot of integrations. One of the first things that caught my eye is you could send Segment to S3. Now, once I saw that there, it began to make things a lot clearer about what Segment is and how powerful it could be. You can just put your analytical data in cold storage and analyze it later, or do it en masse, whatever. You can do real big data stuff if you like. Everyone is raging on about machine learning and artificial intelligence. Well, you could use Segment to help you collect that data from your app or your store. So let's have a look at the state of analytics in Solidus. We started off from Solidus 1.4, I think, and it had on the checkout process, Google, what is now Solidus trackers. It had it there in an if statement. If all the complete, send it to Google Analytics, and they had the snippet for Google Analytics. I mean, it did the job. It integrated with Google Analytics, and then after Solidus 2, I think, it got extracted into Solidus trackers, and it was funny to see it come up to say don't use it. We don't use it anymore. It's too simple for what we want. We wanted to integrate into different platforms. So as a beginner, if you just want to set up quickly on Google Analytics, I guess, it's a good start. But I would recommend you look for other ways, I think. Maybe, some of the things we'll cover in this talk, maybe you go on to use. But yeah, I want to propose to my boss to devote some time into having some pull requests into Solidus trackers. Maybe we can, add a little bit more so some people starting can see that analytics is actually good and beneficial to your business. So let's go back to setting up with Segment. So the first thing you need to do is just head over to segment.com, get yourself an account. It's free for a very small set of usage. The pricing can be very steep, so make sure that you benefit from it before you go invest a lot. And then Segment has a really nice and handy library that you can use with Ruby. There are obviously a few kinks to it, but generally enough, it solves all the problems we want. And just add that to your gem file, and the configurations in the initializer looks like that. Fairly straightforward. All of this will be on the Analytics Ruby README, and fairly straightforward. Once that's there, you're kind of good to go. So a few times we were, I didn't listen a few times. My boss told me to make sure that performance is good with using Segment, and I kind of ignored a few of it. I just did my thing. I was happy and excited to work with a new integration, and away I went. And there was a few problems. Put it up on production, obviously. 9 times out of 10, things always went wrong, and it did. Segment was down unexpectedly, and we had problems with different libraries, and there are all sorts of things. But because of those, it physically stopped orders, customers from completing orders because it was throwing up errors from the trackers. So we didn't want that to happen anymore. We wanted to be able to analyze people without interfering with their day-to-day. And so creating background services was essential. So there are 2 kind of main methods you can extract from the Analytics Ruby gem from Segment. The first one is identify. This method just handles identifying your users and your customers, whether they're on whatever plan they're on. You can identify, sends information about them, and you can send it to places like MailChimp, Google Analytics, wherever you want. And the second method, this is the one that handles everything else. So this is specifically for identifying, and that's specifically for, whatever else you want, you can track. And we will focus more on that and look at the events we can track. So what can we track? Now, one of the most fantastic things about Segment is they have a spec, a document. And this document has, a lot of things. And they have a specific section on e-commerce and all the data they recommend you should track and all the data they support you tracking. This was fantastic. I literally spent like a day just going through that and trying variations of different integration. It blew my mind, the amount of things you can track, when it came to e-commerce, adding to car, removing from car, upgrading. Basically everything you can think about is in there. We're just going to focus on a few of those. And if you have a chance, there are plenty more you can look into. The first is just page browsing. So as you go from one page to another, we just want to track what you're up to and what you're doing. And that's largely focused on the JavaScript side of things. I'm not a JavaScript dev, so I have a very, very, very rough snippet to show you guys. And then identify users. This is very crucial. If you don't know who your customers are, then there's not really a lot you can do. And the products they're browsing. So, are they looking at one particular product more than others? You can find out. You can see what they're searching for and what they're ordering, which, is the core of your business. You want to see what's selling. And the coupons, that surprised me. You can track people. You can see what kind of coupons they're using. And it sounds like, well, you should be able to, but it never really occurred to me that, yeah, I want to know, how well my coupons are doing. No, as a developer, if a customer asks me, could we track that? I'll be like, we'll just go to the database and count how many coupons have been used, and there you go. But no, you can actually see people using coupons because there are different ways people use it. They can have a problem typing in a specific coupon, and you can see them having that problem. They could add it, remove it, all these kind of things. It's good to know because as the more you know and the more you see the problems they have, the better you can fix it, really. Let's start with some JavaScript. So this is the page browsing setup. So yeah, forgive this, please. Not my best, but it solves problems. And so the first thing we want to do is expose our segment env to JavaScript. Now, in the segment snippet you get, there is a bit you type in your code. So segment gives you a JavaScript snippet. I didn't want to go type it everywhere, so I insisted on keeping it as in the env. And of course, we have a very nice, helpful method to see if we have users. And someone pointed out to me, I probably don't need to check present on that, but there we go. And yeah, so the reason why I have try everywhere is because this is an ERB, and when you run it, it will try and evaluate it even if there is no data. And obviously it errored, even when there was a user logged out. But yeah, essentially, these methods like user ID, user email, and this one here looks weird, but I wanted to leave this here as an example. Now, Intercom is one of the integrations with Segment, but because Intercom, they also have they require you to encrypt the user you're tracking. I'm not too familiar with Intercom, but from what I understand, it's like not exactly like a CRM, maybe a CRM, I don't know, but you can track users, you can talk to them if they have problems, you can see their problems they're having, and you can kind of solve their problems, come back to them a couple of days later to see if their problems are solved, if they're happy, whatever you know. So you can identify these users, and Intercom requires you to have an hash you send to, and this was a nice helpful snippet I found. So it's stuff like this that Segment allows for. So no matter what the integrations are, some integrations have their weird quirks, so Segment can kind of work with it. And yeah, and the rest is just whether they're logged in or not. Now, all of this is to go to something like this. Now, this was something I copied and pasted. Again, it is currently working, so I didn't want to spend too much time into it more than I had to. I'm pretty sure there are many ways to clean this up. This is in the CoffeeScript because we try and organize our JavaScript nicely. I haven't found a good CoffeeScript for that we can put in a partial. If everyone has a gem to recommend to use, easy way to use CoffeeScript in your partial, please let me know. So we check, this is the segment. So before this, we want to have the snippet we get from segment. And here we're just sending data to segment to say either the user is logged in or not, and we want to track. This is just a tracker. It just tracks your page. It sends over your IP address, your referral, all that stuff. We'll have a look at a demo and how this is working towards the end. So put all of that in, and users are browsing from page to page. So this is like a metadata example that is sent from that. It has everything you need. If there are users attached to it, it will try and send that through. But you just get a dump of JSON. This is the view on segment. And then it sends it to Google Analytics if you have it set up. So you don't need to put the Google Analytics snippet on there. And yeah, it's pretty much straightforward. And whatever other integrations you want to add to it, it will send it to, it will kind of have it going, and away you go. So let's jump back to Ruby land for a second. Let's speak about identifying users. So there are many reasons why mostly we want to know about our users, but the things we want to track about our users is what they're doing on the site. After they register, we want to start tracking them. After the login, we want to start tracking them. When they change something, we want to know who they are and what they've changed. Basically, how things go. We want to just know what they're up to. And So a basic setup for that is I wanted to kind of have a way of an easy way of changing my analytics. So I wanted an easy way to be able to track what users are doing and not to have it interfere too much with Solidus. So I can extract it and maybe potentially put it into completely custom solutions. So I created a service, and this is just a tracker service. So there are many things we can track. So this is the user one. This is very simple. And with that, I have something like this. And all this will do, you can see we have our events, the jobs we've created, and it will use the analytics.identify from analytics Ruby through segment, and it will just send the data there. We can track certain events, we can pass through traits about the user, and so on and so forth. A lot of this is, very nice to have. Some not. Solidus has a lot for you to use, and so forth, really. And if you use device, because devices is Warden, you can get a callback and you just put your tracker in there, pass in your user, and the action they've done is logged in. And then this will fire off, just like we saw the page kind of tracker. It will send it over to segment, and you will have your payload and everything, and just like that, your users are being tracked. And from then, every action the user that a user does will be tracked throughout. And it looks something like this, really. It will say the user and what they tracked. So we'll have a look at this in a bit, but this is just a very easy way to see kind of what your users are up to. And that looks like that in segment. If you go view the raw, you can see plenty more, and you can see the events that is being tracked. We're just going to quickly go over these. So this is, for example, browsing products. You want to search. You want to see what your users are searching for. You want to see what they're viewing. All this kind of stuff, really. Because the more you know, you can take business action, or as developers, you can create tools to kind of just help that. And just like before, create our service, and we have our tracker. And it's exactly the same as the signed in tracker. Again, there are obviously better ways to interpolate these methods, but this is just to illustrate that kind of everything else you do in terms of tracking is the same. You just give the events you're tracking and pass through the data. It's pretty much it. And then if you have a user, pass through the user identifier that you're tracking. And obviously, there were many different ways I had to implement this. And coming from working with Spree a lot, obviously, class evals everywhere. But I'm learning. It's not the best way to go about it, because I don't really want to spend 3-4 weeks or months upgrading. So it has been helpful working with Solidus, especially using most of the APIs. They have to be able to extend it. And I've read a lot of blog posts and watched some of last year's talk about how to go about extending Solidus, and it makes sense kind of using those now. And every time we now have to upgrade, I don't really have to worry too much about those. And the core ordering is pretty much the same things. These are all the things you can track. And yeah, there are many reasons people don't do this, because it's a lot of work. You have to put in the work, but I argue that the more work you put into tracking these things, the more you're gonna get out of it, the more you know your users. And obviously, the more you know your users, the better you can plan for them, the better you can create tools to help them out. And it's exactly the same thing, this is where I spend a lot of time trying to figure out the best ways to go about implementing this. But again, if you wanted to track order completed, for example, you can just have something like this. And if anyone has a slightly better way of putting this, please let me know. I'm always looking for ways to maybe improve on performance or everything else. And same thing, same deal. Event properties, and away it goes. And this is, I left this here because this is what's currently on the segment trackers. So you can have the same thing, and you can replace this with so you can actually create your, one thing I want to do is, if I don't have a chance to create pull request for the segment trackers, is maybe extract some of the things I have done here to maybe a gem that would just have simplicity, like tracking you can do with segment. There are a few people from the analytics Ruby that are kind of asking for one unified solution, so we'll see. And you can do custom solutions to it as well. You can track custom things. You can do something like subscriptions, so it doesn't only have to be based around the kind of core e-commerce stuff. So what are the right tools? I don't know. I don't know the right tools to use because there are thousands of them. And yeah, so this is apparently the marketing tools you can use. And obviously there are different variations of it and some of it repeat, but it's difficult to tell you, go use this tool, because first of all, you need to have a problem you're trying to solve. And based on the problem you're trying to solve, there are tools. And you may want to just focus on the e-commerce side of things or the commerce side of things from specific, for I guess a lot of people in here. But there are many, many tools you can use. And honestly, yeah, plenty. So the best thing I suggest is a few resources I'm going to put next. Stuff like the Lean Startup. So they go through the tools and how you can use them and the industry standard and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, plenty of tools to use. So that is a question that you will probably have to answer for yourself. So these are just a few kind of starting points, I guess. Natalie and I wrote a blog post. She's more of a coming from a less technical point of view, and yeah, she did most of the work for it, and it goes through using most of kind of examples of some of those tools. So for example, I recommend like the Lean Analytics. It's a great book. It has industry standards. It has a specific chapter on e-commerce. You can get to know your users and your products a lot more. There is I haven't read that one, but that's specifically focused on Google Analytics, I think. And yep, she gives it the approval and the web analytics. So these three books definitely help. It's like a starting point. And from then on, you can ask questions to, others that are expert in around analytics. So to just quickly wrap up everything, and basically, yeah, so analytics, everybody needs it. As developers, we need it. You can use segment into your own side projects, into anything you're doing really, so just see how people are using it. And don't be afraid to just get in there. And for me as a developer, I stayed away from it for a very long time because I didn't have to use it. But honestly, it's very good. The more you learn about how people use your tools, the better really. And you can build effective solutions to some of the problems that people have. Customers, they are everything really. We need to know, especially from e-commerce, we rely on our customers for everything. And if we don't know them, if we don't know what they're kind of doing, then we can't service them properly. Yeah, we can have a few products on our site and they will come buy it if they need it, but the easier we can make that process, hopefully the better. And segment ties everything together really, and there are hundreds of integrations with segment. Check it out. You may be surprised. Maybe segment has some obscure integration that you're currently working with, and if it doesn't, write your own. You can write integrations for it, and see there are new integrations added every single day. Some helpful resources there. I think I will probably share this slide somewhere, so you can kind of review the segment docs and a few kind of examples. All the examples I've been through today were put in the repo, and you can just see kind of reference it, or by all means 4K and do whatever you want with it. And yeah, I am kind of eager to see what people do with it. Just a quick time for some demo. This is one of the things that got me hooked up on segment. The minute I saw this, everything was second to this. I wanted to do this every chance I got. So if any of you have your devices on you, laptops, whatever, if you can go onto that link and we'll see Segment working live from the debugger. Let's see if this works. So.
Just want to show the URL for a little bit longer so people can get in.
Absolutely. So that's the URL. So yeah, just there we go. So as people get on that, the first thing to show you is Segment. People are browsing through whatever they're doing as they're doing it. We're tracking it, and I mostly just sit here for a while to just see people using a new feature we've released, and you can straight away see problems with it, and you can inspect it more, you can kind of have a look at it, and we turned on the Google Analytics integration with it, and there it goes. Pretty similar APIs, or straight away sends it off there, really, with absolutely no delay. And yeah, it is very easy to turn on integrations. It's just as easy as copying and pasting your Google Analytics code into it. So if you click on sources, we can go into integrations, and it is pretty much as easy as just clicking on it and typing in your tracker's ID. And if you want to add more integrations, you can do so. There is a whole catalog of integrations, different categories and everything. So yeah, that is pretty much Segment. And there are quite a few integrations that I missed off. But as you can see, this as a developer, I loved looking at, because this was data I can look at. It was stuff I can analyze, and I can directly see the benefits of. So whilst that is up there, thank you for listening to me. My name is Denis. I work at Cookies. If you have any questions now, I'll be happy to take them. Yeah.
Do you use any kind of heat maps like Crazy Egg?
Sorry, what's your name?
I'm Cindy.
Cindy asked if I use any kind of heat maps like heat maps. No, I personally haven't used any heat maps. I'm sure that Segment has integrations to heat maps. And yeah, if you find any, please share with us, or if I see any, I'll be sure to let you know.
So like Crazy Egg sells a heat map. It shows you where people are clicking on your page.
Right, I see.
Very enlightening.
Right, I see. Yeah, absolutely. I can think that just seeing what people are doing and the buttons people are clicking on. Absolutely, yeah.
But you're not using those?
No, not currently, no. From the back, yeah?
Very interesting discoveries that you have made after implementing this, like maybe your marketing or product team, you see something and made a decision based on that.
Right, I see. So any interesting discoveries since implementing Segment? Personally, just discovering Segment was an interesting discovery, because I understood a lot more about what the marketing department gets up to. And I can work with them a lot easier, you know. I can understand the problem they're trying to solve. So it's not just, here, put this snippet or put this snippet. I'm a bit more actively engaged in kind of the things that are going on, although it's not my role, but I kind of understand a lot more. In terms of discoveries, not really, because Segment collects the data, but at the end of the day, it's still up to you to interpret it from the integrations yourselves. So it's just cool to see what people are doing as and when they're doing it. But other than that, it's kind of not. That's where I stop basically at Segment. Yeah.
Any integrations that you would recommend other than the GA for actually giving people like an insight into all the events?
Well, not really. Sorry, Google Analytics is kind of like one stop for a lot of solutions for people. Kind of mixed panel is a really good integration. I personally haven't worked with it much, but I hear a lot about it. I hear it's a good way to track users and kind of segment users and I don't know, see what users get up to. And another tool like Intercom is another good tool to use. You can actually, if you turn on the intercom, and you can actually chat to users directly from the site when they come onto the site. It's annoying most of the time, but you just have a little question mark in the corner and you can speak to someone if you want to. But there is a guide on Segment onto the integrations, and they go through different common problems basically, and they recommend the tools to use. Any more? Yeah.
There's an obvious play here. You're taking data from Segment, you're putting it in S3. S3 is the element into Amazon's Redshift.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then from Redshift, you can connect it to any number of visualization tools like Tableau or Lumen and Sisense. But that would be if you wanted to go to the next level where you can slice and dice and create dashboards and do a lot of make the data come alive, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just some of the people here are asking if you're doing. That's just an obvious pathway, to go from Segment into Redshift.
Right.
And then there's something where you can really play with the data and create dashboards to the needs of different stakeholders.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah, so it's, I'm going to try and simplify that. So a good pathway to follow is to send your data from your site, store, whatever, into Segment. And from Segment, you can send it to AWS Redshift. And from there, you can create many interesting dashboards for your stakeholders, graphs. I know most of our clients like to see graphs and, infomercials, if you like. Did I understand it correctly? Yeah, I see.
So let's just go to the next step. Instead of just putting it in cold storage in S3,
Yeah.
Use S3 as a staging,
Right, I see.
which is naturally how it works on AWS.
Yeah, okay.
That, you take it and you push it into your warehouse
Mm-hmm.
in Redshift, and then you can start, using any number of tools that connect to Redshift
Right,
to visualize the data.
I see. Oh, great. Redshift is a AWS tool I wasn't aware of, but for people to check out. Any other questions? Okay. I think that's it. Thank you.